You're listening to Soundrise Podcast, a show hosted by Aleks in Serbia and Vlada in Poland.
Each week we cover a different artist or band and engage in an open and spontaneous debate and discussion about specific parts of their discographies. Our goal is to expand our musical horizons and cover a great range of artists and styles.
Find us on Patreon, patreon.com/soundrisepod, and social media @soundrisepod.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode that is Minisode of the Soundrise podcast. Today we're going to be talking about an act pretty related to our last main episode in the series. So Alexander, how are you doing?
Hi Vlad, I'm doing great. I'm really happy to do this minisode because I have a personal connection to this band. So yes, as you mentioned, we did the Metallica episode, and now we're gonna talk about one of ex-Metallica members' solo project, so to say, Jason Newsted and his short-lived band called Newsted. Okay. So Vlada, have you heard about this band before?
Yeah, to be frank, of course, as a big Metallica fan, I was more than aware of what Jason was doing afterwards, but it didn't really pique my interest back when it came out, so I think it took me a while before I eventually got down to it. So this is an interesting opportunity to talk about this release, kind of a one-off release by Jason. It's also interesting to see what he's capable of on his own, because remember in our Metallica episode we were talking a lot about Jason not really getting a chance to be creative within Metallica as a band. So this is a good opportunity to see what he's capable of.
Exactly. This project was basically all about him and his creativity and what he wanted to do on his own. Some people even criticize the idea of naming a band after yourself. You know, it's Newsted, and not just that. Also, if you take a look at Newsted's logo, it features a star with a skull in the center, and since the star has, as we know, 5 spaces, so to say, that's where Jason kind of put his name. You know, all 5 letters of his name. So it was basically Jason Newsted, a one-man show. You know, and I'm sure that at least 90% of people that have heard about this band uh, find out about them via Metallica, just like we did. Lana. What do you think about that?
Well, like people may criticize something like that, but when you're a household name in this industry, you're going to milk it for all it's worth, and so nothing against that. It's his own project. He put his name to it, which brought a lot of people to the band. It brought the band to the spotlight, so to say, something that these musicians perhaps wouldn't have necessarily got had they gone on with a different name. So I think it's kind of fair that the band has his name, Newsted. And what I really want to talk about here is their music rather than all these external things. But it's also interesting to mention that Jason, prior to doing this record, didn't really want to venture on that kind of solo career of sorts. That he was a part of Ozzy Osbourne's band for a while. Interestingly enough, replacing Robert Trujillo, who joined Metallica, so they kind of swapped places there. And he also played in the legendary Canadian metal band Voivod. So it's interesting that eventually he decided to release a solo, or not maybe a solo record, but his own project uh, after years of trying to get on with other bands and other musicians, being that backup guy. So yeah, it's good to see that he had the courage and will to do something on his own. Even though, interestingly enough, that was one of the reasons why he departed from Metallica. It was back then he had another project called Echo Brain, and he was basically trying to get it out there, much to the chagrin of the rest of the band. And of course, that led to the whole clash, which we talked about at some length in our Metallica episode, which you should also check out. So, Alexander, could you share, before we start talking about the record itself, could you share a few pieces of information about Jason and the band?
Sure, Vlada, sure. Okay, so this band was formed in 2012, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, it wasn't, uh, it wasn't it was a short-lived band, so to say. Basically, they disbanded in the early 2014, and in that time span, they managed to release an EP called Metal and a full-length album called Heavy Metal Music. Now, the LP basically features all of the songs from the EP, though some songs were released under the uh, under the deluxe edition. And um, what Jason was trying to do here, in my opinion, was bring the heavy metal genre closer to people because, as we know, 2012 that wasn't actually the peak of the traditional heavy metal music, and Jason was basically trying to keep it going, to keep it alive, you know. And some say that his style of playing and also his style of singing. By the way, guys, he was also the lead vocalist here. Many compared him to Lemmy from Motorhead and James Hetfield, obviously from Metallica. When it comes to the personnel here, he was joined by Jesse Farnsworth and Jesus Mendez Jr. And later on, Mike Mushak would join the band. So that was the original lineup, and the lineup that was there, until they disbanded. How I found about now I want to obviously talk about my personal connection with this band. So how I found about this band was obviously through Metallica. It was when I was in high school, and that was kind of the time when I started to be an active heavy metal listener. So I was just getting into all these legendary bands like Iron Maiden, Metallica, Judas Priest, and Newsted emerged as a little project that was kind of cool to people who weren't, you know, into these modern metal acts like new metal acts. As we know, Vlada, we are not huge fans of those bands,
I
with some
kind of thought
exceptions.
you were. I thought you loved this kind of stuff back in high school or something like that.
New metal, nah. It was just Korn that was kind of okay. I have to
I
be honest.
definitely thought you were a Slipknot fan. I don't know. I guess
No way.
I don't know. Maybe you just forgot about it. You have a mild case of amnesia now.
Well, yeah, guys, I'm an old person, so I can't really remember a lot of stuff. So it was a long time ago. Okay, so yes, back to Newsted. Um, they were really cool because Jason had. First of all, I really liked Jason as a Metallica member. He was basically my favorite Metallica um, musician. I really liked his energy, his style of playing, even though it was a bit underrated, as I mentioned in the Metallica episode. And I have to say, Jason Newsted was the guy that got me into playing bass. So Jason was famous for playing the Sadowski guitars, the Sadowski brand. Now, that brand is mostly famous for bass guitars, but they also produce regular guitars, regular electric guitars. What stands out there is, besides the sound, those bass guitars also have a very good design, which I like. They are a bit pricey for an average musician, but for superstars, for household names, that's just the regular price that you should pay. So, also, Newsted they still have a YouTube channel, and even though they are not active that much anymore. Back in the day when the band was around, Jason was giving a lot of interviews where he was talking about music in general, his approach, also his life, how the project came about, and one of the best at that time, one of the best music advice that I heard was, um, if you want to become a musician or if you want to know your music, expand your horizons. So, say you are a heavy metal fan or you're a heavy metal musician. Don't listen to only heavy metal music. You should expand, you should discover different stuff, which we also talked about with Chris Ekman in our interview. And as you know, Vlada, Jason at one point was also into playing some folk music or folk rock, however, whatever you want to call it. So Jason was kind of a role model. Now you have some banal stuff like his looks and his outfits that I like, as a kid or as a teenager. Though that kind of stuff is pretty much interesting. But yeah, basically the energy that they had, the video clips which were not that good. They were kind of low budget, but they were still appealing to me, and I was kind of really, I don't know, I was torn between. I loved Metallica, but at the same time, I was a huge fan of Newsted, and I even have a custom designed T-shirt with the Newsted logo
I
on.
thought you were going to say I even have a Newsted tattoo on my ass or something like that.
Well, you never know. You never know. I was really into them, and yeah, that's it. That's my personal connection with this band. Unfortunately, I've never had the chance to see them, and I'm not sure that I will have that chance ever. According to Jason Newsted, quote, I was trying to take on too much stuff at once. You can only do so much and make it work right. I won't call it over because I did write a whole another record, but it just hasn't been put together. So he said this years ago, and as we sit here and record, this band is still not active, and I'm not sure if he will be back. As you, Vlada, mentioned before, he has some health issues, some back issues, I think, or I don't know,
I
some.
think this may sound a bit funny, but it seems like his neck is hurting because of all the headbanging that he did with Metallica. And it's actually true. It seems like he actually has very severe physical injuries dating to those years. So it's a shame that Jason cannot be as active as he might want to be, but it is what it is. And we can only hope that eventually he will decide to release another record. But as things stand right now, it seems that he's kind of semi-retired. He did play some folk music live with some other people, which I think is extremely cool. And as you mentioned, Jason has this musical philosophy where he likes to branch out. He's not just a metal guy. His project Echo Brain was also about funk, and he's a huge admirer of great 70s funk bands like Tower of Power. So yeah, but when it comes to this record we're talking about today, that's just pure heavy metal, right?
That's pure heavy metal, that's right. And finally, I want to say the last piece of information that I got about Newsted was a short clip posted on the band's YouTube channel. It was posted like 3 months ago. A very short clip where he was basically sitting in I think his daughter's room and playing with her bass guitar. So we can't really say anything about his um, music career based on that clip, but let's hope. Alright, so let's delve into the music, Vlada. So we don't really need to talk about the EP because the LP basically features all of those songs and many others. So can you give me your thoughts on Newsted's only album, Heavy Metal Music?
What I really find interesting about this record is the overall attitude. It's just so. It's like it has a certain thing that Metallica has been missing in quite a few years. This sort of there's a certain edge to it. It's very visceral, and it's very intense. It feels really tight. But the problem, I think, is that a lot of these songs kind of sound, I wouldn't say generic per se, but they definitely thread that line. They don't have a lot of originality to them, but it's not necessarily a bad thing because he basically delivers what the title says. This is just pure heavy metal, kind of hard rock as well, something in between. So, an old style heavy metal record, something refreshing maybe in these years where a lot of metal bands try their hardest to sound very original or different or intense or extreme. And Jason, I don't know, I think this might have been his fun project, that he didn't really care about making a grand statement with this one. And as a result, you got a really good record, very enjoyable record, but a record that I don't think a listener might stick with. What's your take on that?
Well, to be honest, I was overplaying this record when I was young, when I was in high school. Well, I'm still young, but now it's been a long time since I was a regular heavy metal listener, so I don't really listen to this album that much, especially because it's not really available on the streaming platforms. So I would need to make an effort to find it. I usually listen to this album nowadays when I need some energy or some adrenaline. You're absolutely right. Looking at this album now, it doesn't really have depth, lyrically or um, instrumentally speaking. Like I I would usually go crazy, but now, some of the riffs I have to say are kind of generic, or I think I've heard them many times before in one shape or another, Vlada.
Yeah, that's true. And but on the other hand, you can see that Jason brings a lot of raw power to this. I love his vocal style. I loved it even back when he was still in Metallica. When I was a kid, I remember James would often allow Jason to sing a few songs live in concert, Whiplash or Seek and Destroy. And I remember as a kid, I really loved listening to these parts. I really admired Jason a lot. I always thought that he was live. He was the most important Metallica member just for his sheer stage presence. And you can tell, if you watch the old Metallica videos, you can tell that that's missing from today's lineup, even though Rob is a phenomenal musician, maybe even better than Jason in some ways. But
But
Jason
Jason
had.
has something, off the stage that makes Metallica great. To me, I may be biased, but he is Mr. Metallica.
Okay, that's a bit far fetched. Okay, but I think he was definitely a great addition to Metallica following Cliff Burton's death. He may not have contributed much in terms of music, mostly because I think other guys weren't so open to his contributions. But he did write some great parts on their records. Even on Injustice for All, I think he was the one responsible for the main riff of Blackened, and he did a beautiful bass part for My Friend of Misery on the Black album, and certainly had his input on Loads. So, yeah, definitely a guy that had a lot of talent, had his own metal band before he joined Metallica, Flotsam and Jetsam, where he was the main songwriter, I think. And they're still going strong. That's interesting. Flotsam and Jetsam are still going strong.
They
Whereas,
released only one album with Jason in the lineup.
yeah, but back then he was the guy in that band, and he left them for Metallica, so that's interesting. And sometimes I think maybe this guy didn't really say everything he had to say for, just the circumstances were such that he never actually managed to fully express himself, which is a crying shame. And I think this record also shows that he has a lot of talent, that he's capable of leading a band. And as generic as it might sound, there's that spark to it. Something, as I said, something that Metallica has been kind of missing a bit. Even though Metallica is still filled with some interesting ideas, but they miss that spark, that I will use one of my most cliched expressions, that in your face attitude. So, yeah, I think this record is definitely cool to check out. If you're a fan of Metallica, I think you might find much to like here. But I'm not sure this is something that will be remembered many years from now.
Well, to be honest, I don't think that people actually think about this stuff. I think this is, oh, I may sound harsh, but I think this project is gone and forgotten because Jason is not active anymore. He's not present on social media. Also, the rest of the band members, I think they already have other bands that they play for. So this was a short-lived one-man project, so to say. I really liked it because Jason was able to express himself, and he was really good at giving interviews and talking a lot of good stuff. He didn't sound like some random cocky rock star. He sounded like a genuine musician, and that's why I still like finding and listening to clips and interviews and I don't know podcasts with him.
Yeah, yeah,
So
his interviews are very interesting. He's a very humble and well-spoken individual. He's kind of, when you listen to his interviews, he kind of strikes me as the opposite of his stage presence during the Metallica years. It's like a completely different person. It's like as if he unleashed the beast while on stage, and in private life he seems rather tame and eloquent, well spoken, sophisticated even in some ways.
yes, it just tells you how open-minded he is, and that's why I kind of liked him and even considered him to be my role model when I was in high school. So today I really appreciate him, and sometimes I go back to that YouTube channel, listen to some clips. But musically speaking, I'm not really a big fan of heavy metal music. But yeah, so Vlada, let's go back to the album. Shall we go through the songs? Do you have any standouts or anything that caught your attention?
Well, it's kind of hard to choose one, but I really liked Soldier Head. Had that great drive, and I love his vocals there. Yes, he definitely reminds of Lemmy in a good way. It's not like he was copying Lemmy or anything like that, but just this sheer power of his vocals and the growl, the ever-present growl that doesn't really grate on you. Like um, he definitely showed his chops with his he definitely showed his chops with this track. Overall great riffs, very catchy. So yeah, that would be my standout, even though there are some other good tracks that are not any worse by any measure. But I think that overall the problem is that after a while, after the first 4 or 5 songs, you kind of get tired of the record. So to be fair, I don't really remember the second half of the record so well. So if I was to pick the best tracks, it would be like the first couple of tracks. Heroic Dose is also great. What about you?
Well, I do know about the rest of the album, and I can still find some good tracks, but the top half is definitely the best here. And Soldier Head was, I think, the first song that I heard from Newsted, and it blew my mind, and it's still my favorite song even nowadays. So, Vlada, we have the same standard track here, but also, above all, As the Crow Flies, King of the Underdogs, you know, all good track with a lot of energy, and as you said, it's so intense and aggressive here. But still, even if you take a look at music videos by Newsted, it is all about, mostly about Jason. So I don't know, maybe some people are right about, being a one-man show, but as you said, he's a household name, and
Well,
um,
yeah, how else would this band attract attention, Because there's other bands just like that, if not better, who don't actually get so many listeners. So I think people sometimes underestimate how important it is to use anything you have in that kind of business that could potentially attract a few more listeners. So it doesn't mean you should sell out or anything like that, but a name that rings a bell is definitely a plus, and it doesn't affect your music or its integrity, right?
well said, Lana. Well said. I wanted to ask you about um, Jason as a vocalist, but you just said that you like him. I was wondering if you think that he can stand his own ground, and I think that he did a great job here.
Yeah, I mean, if he couldn't stand his own ground, then James Hetfield wouldn't have given him so many opportunities to sing with Metallica on stage. You don't see Rob singing, you don't see Kirk singing songs on Metallica's stage. Nowadays it's just James, but back in those years, James would allow Jason to sing parts of the songs. I guess he probably needed some rest, or maybe I I'm inclined to believe that it was because he really enjoyed Jason's interpretations of those songs, especially Whiplash. He was even better than James on that one, I might say. I know I might get stoned for saying that, but to me that's like the definitive version of Whiplash with Jason on vocals. So guys, just go on YouTube, type in Whiplash, Jason vocals, find a video of that, and enjoy it.
Okay, good advice from a huge Metallica fan in Vlada. All right, Vlada. So shall we wrap up this minisode with our ratings and our final words for Mr. Jason Newsted and his inactive solo project?
Okay, so my final word is that this is maybe 6 out of 10. A good solid record, however, kind of forgettable. Uh, Still, if you're a Metallica fan, you might find a lot to love here. Also, if you like that kind of classic metal sound without too much depth to it, just want to have a good time, maybe play it in your car, this might be the good record for you.
Okay, fair enough. For me, this is an 8 out of 10. It has that nostalgic feel. Um, you know, going back to high school. To be honest, I'm kind of sad that Jason is not active anymore, and that this band is shut down. That's also been confirmed by the rest of the crew. So who knows? I would really like to see Jason on the scene again and also see him live. Yeah, that's it for now, guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in and listening. I hope you liked the longish Metallica episode. This was a bonus minisode that we wanted to release along with Metallica. Please give us some feedback and tell us if you're a Metallica fan, tell us if you have ever heard of Newsted and his solo stuff. Also, if you would like to support our show, you can join our Patreon community for as little as $1 per month. That would mean a bunch to us. So check that out. Check out all the tiers and perks that go with it. Follow our social media. All our accounts have the same handle, Soundrise Pod, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Till the next time, stay safe and all the best.
Write a review, and then you can share it.
With the world.
In any social media platform.
And then your friends see it, and you can share and discover new shows together.
This is Steph, instigator of Pod Rev Day, Podcast Review Day.
And I'm Andy from Inspired Money.
And I'm Ariel of Earbuds Podcast Collective and Castbox.
We're here to tell you everything you need to know about Pod Rev Day.
Which is on the 8th of every month, of every year, of every century, of every, you get it.
We are posting podcast reviews as part of #PodRevDay, Podcast Review Day.
Because podcasters work their butts off and deserve to know how much they've impacted your lives. And you can do that through reviews.
Even 1 star feels surprisingly good.
Does
It
it?
lets you know that people are at least listening.
Don't be a passive podcast listener. Write a review and tell your favorite creator what you love about their podcast or about a specific episode.
And to participate, you just need to do 1 review.
And we'll see you every 8th of the month.
Pod Rev Day, because podcasters deserve to hear it.
#.
PodRevDay. PodRevDay.